90.3 WHPC.
We don't have that, sir.
Sure you do. All you have to do is tell your smart speaker to play WHPC on your Amazon device.
Play us all day, every day, on your smart speaker. The voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Thanks for making us your number one preset. Named Best Radio Station in the Bethpage Best of Long Island Awards for the third year in a row.
The voice of Nassau Community College.
WHPC HD Garden City.
Available on the free WHPC app.
90.3 WHPC.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Hi everyone, this is Jewish Talk, coming to you from Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. We're also streaming on nccradio.org. That means you can hear us anywhere throughout the world. This program is later archived on Spreaker.com, Spreaker.com. This program is repeated on Sunday evenings at 11 p.m. So, hi there, my name is, you got it right, Rabbi Shmata. No, it's Rabbi Perl. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This all depends on when you are listening or watching us. Yes, you can watch us. Gewalt! You can see us on Facebook Live at WHBC or my own page at facebook.com/Anshul Pearl. As we say, welcome to everybody. So hello on the radio. Hello. Everyone says I got a great face for radio. Hello online. And hello to the world. I'm going to be talking about two subjects today. One about Judaism and the solar eclipse. And then, as next Sunday will be the holiday of Purim, how are we supposed to celebrate it? How can we really be happy or joyful and glad at a time like this? As Dr. Eitan Kelshevsky so rightly reminds us, there's more than 100 hostages. So should we tone down, or how do we celebrate Purim under these circumstances? So stay tuned for that as I first begin with Judaism and the solar eclipse. What is the deeper meaning behind this natural phenomenon? Hello. Over the weeks, we'll talk more about as we get closer. But today I'd like to make a general introduction, some aspects of what we can think about and learn, and the excitement about the upcoming eclipse of the sun. As I say, good morning to Linda Zellickson and Davida Zellickson. So, as you all know, eclipse fever is growing as many people anticipate the great American eclipse that's taking place on April the 8th, 2024. There's going to be a total solar eclipse that will turn day into night across North America in a path from southwest to northeast. Many people are buying new suits for the occasion. People are traveling there. There's all kinds of parking. If I'm not mistaken, there's actually closing a number of schools that in line with this eclipse because it'll be dark and all kinds of issues like that. In truth, many in the Jewish community are excited as well, because thanks to being connected historically and spiritually to this upcoming event, as I will soon explain. So I would say my opening line is this headline: what is the Kabbalah? What is the mystical side of this solar eclipse? In each of us, there shines a bright sun. In each of us, there is a time of its eclipse. The solar eclipse within. Now, if you can observe it, recognize it, and understand it, it must be found somewhere within you. Yet more, this is a general principle to keep in mind, dear friends, as I say hello to Richard D. Rottenberg. Hello to you and to your wonderful mother. Anything you see and hear, even all kinds of things and all kinds of people saying things from Hollywood to Washington, the eclipse that we're talking about today, there has to be something, there's a reason why we hear and experience things. Anything you observe, this is based on the teaching from the Baal Shem Tov. Anything you see and hear is a teaching moment about something inside of us as well. There is no dichotomy between what's going on around us and what's going on inside of us. We make the dichotomies, we create the divisions, but there really is, or there should be, a happy synergy between the two. In practical sense, the upcoming eclipse has something vital to remind us of our own divine mission here on earth. Yet more, the truth of each thing that we see, observe, is a lesson that it comes to teach us. Because if a thing, a subject, an idea enters our world, it can only be for one reason, so that our soul could better fulfill the mission for which it is sent on this place. It takes an effort, my friends, to feel that mission constantly, to be able to address the world, to address oneself in that form, takes a lot of effort. A violinist who gets up there in Carnegie Hall and plays beautifully has spent hours and hours and hours of preparation. It doesn't just get up there and start doing it. Same thing with prayer, same thing with learning, same thing with thinking about the world. Just to simply respond because this one said that on that program, on that on this one program, on this station, that station, is rather shallow. A person must be thoughtful. And today, at this moment, I'm going to share with you ideas that are reflective of this solar eclipse. That everything in this world, this upcoming excitement, has something to teach us and remind us. If so, if there's anything you want to understand to its depth, you must first find it within yourself and listen to what it is teaching you. And the Torah is our guide to finding it there. So here's the question of the day. As the solar eclipse makes its way across America on April the 8th, it's already capturing the nation's attention. The first thing we have to say is, where is the solar eclipse within our own life, within our own life's mission? There's a very famous medrash called Perek Shira. It's a medrash that describes that everything in this world sings. A mosquito, a dog, any animal, every fruit, every vegetable, every single thing in this world sings a song. Human beings clearly also have their song as well. If you want to know what your song is, it's found in the Psalm, the book of Psalms, on your upcoming birthday. So if you are 70 years old, you will find what your particular song is in chapter 71, your upcoming birthday. If you're 20, it'll be in the 21st. The key, though, is to know that every single thing in this world is providing a song. If we listen carefully to each other or to ourselves, we can, with the right kind of focus, hear how our own soul is singing. And you want to know more details, as I said, how does the Torah tell us to find it? Look into the book of Psalms in your upcoming psalm for your next birthday. So, in this Perek Shira, it describes the song of each creation as it praises the Creator. From the song of the heaven, the song of the earth, the song of the waves of the sea, the rooster, the crane, and even the lowly rat. Each sings a verse from Tanakh, from the Torah, each song appropriate to its character. Good morning to Larry Swenson, also known as Chaplain Label. Jeffrey Hirsch, good morning. Stacy Hirsch Lambert, unbelievable. Our lines are packed. So, everything has a song appropriate to its character. Indeed, the Kabbalists tell us that the song of each being, of what your song is and my song or everything in the creation, is its life force, the divine energy that brings it into being and endows it with its nature. So let's take a look where in Perek Shira, I know that Dr. Kilshevsky is already looking it up. What is the sentence? What is the pasuk? What is the song that the sun sings? You won't believe this. The actual sentence reflecting the song of the sun, S-O-N-G of the S-U-N, is a sentence that speaks about the eclipse of the sun. What does it say? The sun is saying, the sun, when covered by the moon, stood in its abode. They walked to the light of your arrows and by the shine of your glittering spear. That's the translation. So the question we have to ask is, as I welcome Mike Panis, unbelievable. When he does a paint job, you can't imagine what's going on. Why would the sun sing about its eclipse? Let it sing about its great light, its warmth, how it makes the possibility of life on our planet. So I'm going to share with you the insight by Rabbi Moshe ben Yosef Ditrani, also known by the acronym of his name, the Mabit. He was a halachicist and a Kabbalist of Tzvas in the 16th century. And he explains why the sun, the song of the sun, speaks about an eclipse, as we today discuss the upcoming excitement about the eclipse of the sun on April the 8th. And he explains, the sun sings its praises for God, for the bad, just as it does for the good. Even as it is struck by the moon standing before it, blocking its light, the sun remains in its place with all of its light. It is only that the moon interposes between us and that light, as we all know what causes the eclipse. The moon, on the other hand, is not that way. When the earth stands between it and the sun, it has no light, for all its light is from the sun. Wonderful. This is what this great sage and Kabbalist explains. Because as the sages tell us, just as you must make a blessing for the good tidings, so you must make one for bad tidings. As we say, good morning to Zalman Weg. And they explain that this means you should accept it with joy. What it means that we must make a blessing for the good, just as we make a blessing for the bad, means that we should accept whatever happens with joy. But why? Why? How can you say that? Because deep down, this is also for the good. And we will discuss more later on when we talk about how we should approach the holiday of Purim this year with what's going on in the land of Israel. Everything is for the good. Only that from our limited perspective, we can't always see the good that is there. Even this eclipse, for thunder, lightning, shooting stars, earthquakes, and volcanoes, there's a blessing to be recited. Interestingly, for an eclipse, there is zilch. There is no prayer. There's no blessing. If you see lightning, you hear thunder, earthquakes, there's a whole list. Look, in the typical traditional Siddur prayer book, you'll have a list in the morning after the morning prayers. It will list you all the prayers you make for an earthquake or a volcano, shooting stars. But for an eclipse, garnished, zilch. And yet, the sun sings, even this is good in truth. As we said, everything in this world ultimately sings. So this great rabbi, Rabbi Moshe Ditrani, goes on to explain the words of the sun's song in this following manner. At the time of the eclipse, the sun stands in its abode. What does that mean? It shines just the same, unlike the moon. Why would the sun stand in its abode? Because it gives off its own light. It has its source of light. And even to those that stand in the path of its eclipse, they walk to the light of your arrows. They still have some light. The rays and the arcs of light that shoot out as arrows at the time of the eclipse. And for those in the rest of the world for whom the eclipse does not appear, they walk by the shine of your glittering spear. So this great Rabbi Moshe, goes on to describe how the sun experiences an immediate recovery from the eclipse, suffering no scars or wounds, instantly returning to its full glory. Right? Once the moon moves, etc., and the whole eclipse thing, it's perfect. The sun is maybe even stronger. Now, when we read this simply, the interpretation is lovely, but at the same time is very problematic. If the sun never loses its light, then nothing bad has happened to it. So how can we say that what is the song of the sun, specifically the reflecting for the bad as for the good? That the eclipse reflects something bad, and we should recognize that even though it's bad, it's for the good. 1 second, the sun hasn't been affected, never loses its light. So what's bad here? And we have yet to answer the major question. Why is this the praise that speaks most of the character of the sun? And for those who are just joining us, I'm sharing you today that every human being, every animal, everything in the inanimate world, every aspect of this world gives praise to God in his or her unique way. And they are, as a whole learning called the Perek Shira, that provides us with a particular sentence in Tanakh that is said by every aspect of this world, every animal, every bird. I have a very large book that gives all these details. And we're explaining now what is the particular song of the sun, and that the sun's sentence speaks of an eclipse, which is something everybody's excited about at the current time. So the truth is, Rabbi Moshe is several steps ahead of us. He has taken his great depth of knowledge and wisdom and squeezed it into simple words that have meaning to all of us. To understand those words, at least a little more deeply, we must first see the sun as its creator knows it. What we're sharing today, my friends, is something very deep and something for us to consider before we make rash decisions and say stupid things and react like crazy nicks over what this one said or that one said or what's going on in the world. There comes a time in our world where we should sit back and try to see the world the way the Creator knows it. So, how does God know the sun? It's not as some great gaseous ball of nuclear fusion, but as a key theme in the act of creation, merely reflected in our world as a physical object up in the sky. Every human being is not just a bunch of bones hanging out. It reflects godliness. It reflects that mission that I spoke about earlier on. Understand that the world is a parable that teaches wisdom by dressing wisdom in a metaphor. This world reveals the divine wisdom by concealing it within the artifacts of the heaven and the earth. So everything around us, we know that every human being is a reflection of the entire world. You could find every aspect in the world inside of a human being. Every human being is considered a whole world. Beginning with the power of infinite light, God calls forth existence from the void, and by concealing that light, he molds that existence into this world, filtering it, carefully articulating it within tight packets of creative energy. And as we know, God, with the divine words, created this world. Think of a musician playing a stringed instrument, such as a violin or a guitar. One hand causes the strings to vibrate, while the other opens and closes those strings, restricting them to the degree that the music demands. Or think of an actor who expresses his or her creativity by pretending to be which he is not. Or the novelist who must stand back and see his story from the perspective of his characters as if he were not there. So creativity and restraint, presence and mystery, light and dark, yes and no, these are fundamental elements of all creative work. Because the archetype of all creativity is the creation of the heaven and earth. And heaven and earth are created by a harmony of these opposites. From within the creation, these two powers can appear as duality. Some see the story of the universe in this way. And what is that? What's this whole world all about? It's a struggle between powers of light and powers of darkness. They see the evil as a ploy of the powers of darkness, good as the victory of the powers of light. But we have the faith, we have the knowledge, that there is only one creator of all things, who calls into existence, into being, and then breathes it into life, while all the time remaining a mystery withheld from these beings, so that they might feel themselves as true creations. So God hides himself, but he hides himself, conceals himself to create an environment where we think we're all independent, but in truth it's all connected. That is why we don't have a problem with this, with the harmony of these opposites. Just as there's no music without the power of restraint, so there is no creation without concealment. And without a creation, to whom will the light shine? Without a creation, who will know their creator? So in the language of Kabbalah, of mysticism, there are two levels of Sphira. It's called Zah and Malchus. On a higher level, they are the two names of Hashem, Havaya, Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, and Elikim. That is what Moses meant when he said, know today and take it to your heart, Havaya hu Elikim, ein od milvade. There's none else. What does it mean? That we are to meditate deeply upon the harmony and the unity of darkness and light, of concealment and revelation, to know that ultimately they are truly one. Why? Then you will realize there's truly nothing else but God. For even the darkness is God. So, let me move this further as well. Within this physical world, these two elements find their most exquisite expressions as the sun and the moon. The sun speaks of the Creator's open power to create, to provide energy, to give life. The moon speaks of the Creator's power to conceal himself within his creation, to remain mysterious, to dwell in darkness, so that the world looks and feels like a real world. And see how they work together in wondrous harmony. So what we're learning today is that the sun and the moon are reflective of something much deeper, of creating a wondrous harmony in this world. Think of it. The sun shines its great light and warmth upon our planet. But it is the moon that enables us to receive that light and live from it. Think of this. The moon's gravity pulls our ocean's tides, moves heat outward from the equator towards the poles. It creates undersea currents to circulate that heat to the furthest regions. Its mighty mass stabilizes our planet's axis and slows its rotation, so that both seasons and days are neither too extreme nor too mild. Think of it as two parents to a child. So the sun and the moon nurture life on planet Earth. Yet now, at the time of the solar eclipse, what happens? The moon comes to dominate over the sun. It does more than regulate its great energy, it blocks its light. And this is Rabbi Moshe's point. Even as the moon conceals the light, the sun itself is not affected. There's really no concealment at all. It is only from the perspective that God's light is hidden. God is there, exactly the same as before the world came into being. All this descent and filtering of light does not affect Hashem in the slightest. Let's go back to the analogy of a parable. When a teacher tells a parable, the student hears a nice story. Eventually, we hope, he discovers the teaching within the story. But to the teacher, there's only the teaching. That is all he or she sees in every detail of the parable. So for God, all there is here now is the same infinite light that was here before the creation began. Everybody agrees that God himself is here. He is everywhere. But it seems that his presence is somewhat like the stealth police vehicle with all the lights turned off. But the truth is that no, all the light is on, right? Just as the sun is in full blast, even as it's being covered up by the moon during an eclipse. The truth is that no, all the light is on, his infinite light, here, now, with us, in our world, providing infinite information of his presence. It's just that we are not capable of perceiving that light. We would lose all the sense of existence if we did. Not until a time soon to come when our physical eyes and the entire physical world will be refined to the point that we will be capable of absorbing that light and remaining the same self-sentient beings within its glow. So now, applying it to ourselves as well. Let's find the solar eclipse within ourselves. So as we come closer to that April the 8th, think of it, as I'm emphasizing today, that everything in the world is something that happens within ourselves. So let's find the solar eclipse within ourselves. Within each of us as well, there's a great light that never ceases to shine. As we say each morning, in the Moda Ani, we thank Hashem for the soul you've placed within me. So we all have that powerful sun shining inside of us. And then we also find that in the Shir HaShirim. Mighty waters cannot extinguish the love, and rivers cannot inundate it. Just as it is certain that behind the moon the sun still shines, so it is certain that within each of us burns a divine fire. You can run away and hide. You can make out and you can say all kinds of words that you think make you feel better. You can even try to forget it. You can even deny everything. But just as a child can never lose the love for a parent, immeasurably more so, the soul inside of us can never lose its unconditional love for God. For darkness will cover the earth, and thick darkness, but upon you God will shine. So, this provides us a glimpse into the fuller meaning of our discussion today. For now we understand why the eclipse best brings out the greatness of the sun, because we're speaking of a light that is never extinguished, and that what we see best, we see that best. When do we get the trial, so to speak? When do we know that the sun is really full swing? At the time of an eclipse. Our other question, however, still remains unanswered. If the sun shines just the same at the time of the eclipse, how does this teach us to give thanks for the bad as for the good? I haven't seen the following an answer to this, but I'm sharing an idea. But I can try to provide an answer to this. This is the irony of the solar eclipse. We bask in the sun's rays all day, yet there is the only time. I guess this is during this eclipse, where for a short period of time, that we are able to stare at the sun with our naked eye. At any other time or place, even the moment immediately before the eclipse or afterwards, even a few degrees off the narrow band of totality, a short glimpse of the sun can be literally blinding. As we all know, if you remember, don't do it without special glasses or equipment. But for those 2 minutes or so, humanity has its only opportunity to behold the sun eye to eye. In fact, if it were not for the eclipse, it is doubtful that we would ever understand a thing about the sun. Yet more, it is the only time when we can see the darkness of the moon clearly, even in midday, meaning at all other times we bask in the sun's light. At the time of the eclipse, we can stare at the sun itself. As it turns out, the moon's darkness hides the light only to help reveal the sun. So too, the darkness of this world hides the light so that God himself can be revealed through our labor in that darkness, our mitzvahs and our seeking out of God with all of our heart, despite every challenge. The angels have light. They have very little free choice, for they see only the truth. We, who struggle in darkness, who must choose light on our own accord, we touch God himself. As we say good morning to Cheryl Varon Kowarski. So in simple terms, for each of us, it's the following. There are times when light shines down upon us. We need neither struggle nor search. It's the daytime of our lives. And then things happen. In darkness, each movement becomes a struggle. Nothing can be found without grappling to search. The world becomes a threatening, thick forest of confusion. Then, that is when we are forced to find our own inner light, a light that neither fades nor flickers, but only hides behind the barriers we ourselves have set up for it. Now, in the eclipses of our life, we uncover that light and discover that it is God himself that shines within us. And so it is the sun that teaches us to make a blessing for the good as we would do for that which appears not so good. Because who knows better than the source of light that darkness too is good? There is no good and evil. From the mouth of Hashem, no bad comes from God. There's only good and very good. For it is this time of darkness that allows us to stare the source of all good in the face with the naked eye. Soon will be a time when the darkness will shine openly, when all pain and suffering will transform to good, and the night times of our life will endure only as memories of even greater good. As Isaiah describes in his metaphor of his vision, the light of the moon shall be like the light of the sun, and the light of the sun shall be sevenfold as the light of the 7 days of creation. And on that day, God will bind the fracture of this world, and the stroke of their wound will be healed. May this upcoming solar eclipse be the harbinger of the realization of that vision, and may it come sooner than we can imagine. Let me now continue to discuss a very important question that was brought up in our shul this past Shabbos. And talking about shul, I'm reminding everyone that next Sunday is Purim. Please make every effort to go to shul in the evening, hearing the Megillah in the morning. And for those who would like to join us, we have a Megillah reading at 8:10 Saturday night, the first time to hear the Megillah. Sunday morning, we have a service at 8 a.m., followed by Megillah reading at 8:35. And then we have a late Megillah reading at 3 p.m. And then we have an afternoon festival celebration called Purim in Israel. and all wonderful themes and food that relate to our support and appreciation of the land of Israel. Take this number down, 516-739-3636, or send us an email, and we'll be happy to share with you all the details and look forward to welcoming you. So here's our question. As I say, welcome to Levana Cohen Lichter. This is the question that I have to share with you today. Let me tell you a little humor to introduce the idea. A German, a Frenchman, and a Russian are discussing the meaning of a true happiness. True happiness, the German says, is to go hunting in the forest, catch a wolf, and then have a beer at the fireplace. No, shine. That's not happiness at all. The Frenchman says, happiness is take a nice stroll along the River Seine, then climb the stairs of the Eiffel Tower, and take in the view of the City of the Lights. That's true happiness. Oh, no, says the Russian. He chimes in. That's kid stuff. True happiness is when you come home from a long day at work at the Soviet factory, sit down with a copy of Pravda, when the KGB barges into your house and says, Stefan Stefanovich, you're under arrest. And you correct them and say, nope, Stefan lives in the apartment next door. That's true happiness. This year it seems that we can identify somewhat with this Russian's happiness. The joy that comes when a missile hits an empty building across the street and not someone's house, God forbid. There is a relief, perhaps. But how happy can one really be 5 months after the shocking attack on our people on Simchas Torah, October the 7th, with thousands of deaths, Hashem Yimkam Damam, and when there's still 134 of our brothers and sisters remained kidnapped and imprisoned. In a year like this, how can we comply with the sage's dictum that becomes the month of Adar, Mishenichnes Adar, Marbim Besimcha, we're supposed to increase in joy? Where do we find the heart and the mind and the inspiration to align with the greatest joy on the Jewish calendars, as the sages tell us that on Purim we're supposed to we have an obligation to become that inebriated on Purim to the point that we don't know the difference between Or Haman, cursed be Haman, and Baruch Mordechai, blessed is Mordechai. So I'm going to suggest let's call it an easier answer, and then try to answer the bigger picture as well. The easier answer may be found in the Megillah. The Megillah actually discusses two kinds of happiness. In Hebrew is sason and simcha. Translated, sason means gladness, and simcha means joy. This year, perhaps we should focus on Purim on gladness over joy. Let me explain. The Megillah states that after we learned that Haman's plot was reversed and that God had granted them permission to stand up against their enemies, I'm quoting from the Megillah of Esther, Haman was hung, Mordechai took his position now, second to the king, and after this great moment, the verse tells us the famous, what's the expression? La Yehudim haisa oira v'simcha v'sasain vikar. For all of us, we had light, joy, gladness, and honor. We have these words, simcha, joy, and sasain is gladness. And the Talmud elaborates, what do we mean by joy? The joy of the holiday. V'samachta b'chagecha. What does the word gladness means? It means circumcision. And there's a proof text to that. These are things that Haman was trying to stop, and once he was gotten rid of, we now could return to our joy, the festival, simcha, and sasan. We could now continue this mitzvah of circumcision on the males. But what exactly is the essential difference between gladness and joy? Are they mere synonyms of happiness? Moreover, to the extent that they do differ, What does each one look like? And why is joy reserved for the holidays? When we say simcha, we talk about, it means holidays. And gladness is reserved for circumcision, as the Talmud indicates. So I share with you an enlightening insight from the Rebbe himself, that gladness and joy are two separate qualities and emotions. Good morning, Sharon Jacobs. They exist independently of each other. They may occur simultaneously. That means a person could have joy and gladness in their life at the same time, or you can have joy and gladness in different times of our life. One may be joyous but not glad, or glad but not joyous, or glad and joyous together. Clearly, these are two different qualities. Simcha means, or translated joy means, a visible, an external outburst of elation. It's sparked by some specific event that brings out happiness and joy, often expressed with movement, with singing and dancing. Why? Because this joy is sparked by an external factor and is expressed on the surface. Simcha is a temporary expression of that. It can pass as quickly as it comes when the causes underlying wears off. Sason, joy, on the other hand, means an inner spiritual happiness, a true satisfaction. It is a lasting, meaningful that accompanies a content life. I'm going to give you an example. Let me illustrate the difference. Let's consider the feelings of a bride, the groom, and the friends at their wedding celebration, as opposed to the sentiments of their parents. Think of this. For the young couple and their friends, the wedding is all about excitement, dancing, singing, which begin when the band starts to play and ends when the band starts to pack up. In some cases, replaced next day by the resulting hangover. But the parents of these bride and groom, they're experiencing a much more profound happiness that's deep in their hearts. Gladness at having reached this moment, the crowning achievement of their parents' efforts over the many years. For the bride and the groom, it's a joyous commencement of a life beginning to be built. For the parents, it's a glad culmination of a life that helped build, that they worked so hard to build, to bring up their children to this blissful moment of matrimony. So this latter, how the parents feel, is of a glad soul elation. Doesn't necessarily manifest itself in exuberant dancing and springing about. It actually reflects itself for the parents in a certain seriousness. Have you not been at a wedding and you see the parents crying? Right? It's not sadness, but it's a very seriousness. This is the glad moment, this inner contentment of reaching this moment. Perhaps this is the reason when the Lubavitcher Rebbe gave a person the blessing, he would say, you should have a life that's filled with simcha uvetuv levav, joy and gladness of heart. That is, with both kinds of happiness. The exuberant external joy, but also we should each of us, reach a point of inner gladness and satisfaction of life. We can pretend we can go running to vacations and have these joyous moments, but we have to ask ourselves, am I glad? Do I have an inner sense of unity in my life? Am I really content? We can pretend, we can run away. Let's apply this to our conversation today. As we think about the upcoming holiday of Purim, joy, we say simcha, is the joy of a festival. Gladness, we said, means circumcision. The joy of Yom Tov, our sages, is by meat and wine. So this is a physical joy resulting from some physical pleasure that prompts us. But gladness, we said, the Talmud says, indicates like a moment of a bris. Look at the bris. It's hardly dancing and excitement. The contrary, the baby's crying. And the parents find it difficult to watch the cutting of their own child's, the bris. Yet, it is by no means a sad occasion, God forbid. Rather, there's where gladness, The moment is a deep inner happiness and contentment. It's the tremendous privilege of bringing the newborn son into the ancient covenant of Abraham our father and adding the next link in the millennia-old chain of Jewish generations. So what does it mean for us today? Under the circumstances, many will naturally find it difficult to feel the joy, the simcha of Purim this year. It can be hard to even imagine exuberant dancing and singing and springing and excitement that comes from simcha. Yet, there's absolutely no reason at all one cannot feel an even greater measurement of gladness, sason, for precisely the same reason. Think about this. The Jewish body may be broken, but its spirit and soul are stronger than ever. The eyes weep for the terrible price we have paid. The heart is anguished by the bloodshed, physical and emotional pain, the cries of our brothers and sisters who have lost loved ones, the cries of those in captivity and those longing to be reunited with their family members and friends. Like at the bris milah, the child cries out in pain. But we know with absolute certainty, as the congregation says and gathers and the family gathers, amidst this pain blow to the body, what's actually happening? The Jewish heart has found its place like never before. Because when it comes to us, things are the opposite of what you might expect. When they try to attack our land and identity, we mobilize with full force to retrieve it. When they try to trample our heritage and our Judaism, we embark on a determined mission to find it and to keep it. Think about what was going on last year. I want to say hello to Millie Maggot, who's listening all the way from, I believe, Florida. Thank you, Millie. Congratulations on Larry's 70th and your recent wedding celebration. So think about it. Last year, this time before Purim, there was a to-do going on in Israel. And, we had to remind ourselves we're really one people and all the differences that were going on at that time, if you remember. This year, we're not talking so much about our differences. We realize we're all standing together, strong. There's a certain sense of gladness in the heart, even if it's hard to feel the joy. Where does the gladness come from? Knowing that we are who we are, and that we are being who we are and what we're meant to be. And there are many, many stories that speak about this, how this year, in Israel in particular, Judaism has burst forward, this gladness of heart, from everybody in all different stratas of society, in so many different ways. There was, at the beginning of the current war, tens of thousands of reserve soldiers were quickly mobilized, and even soldiers who weren't formally called up went to volunteer for the battle. And the civilian background of people, they mobilized to care and to provide for the soldiers. Two brothers called Yotam and Asaf, doctor, they have a restaurant in Tel Aviv. Rising to the occasion, they told their restaurant staff to prepare thousands of meals for the soldiers in the field for free. When the first shipment of meals arrived in an airbase near Beersheba, a problem arose. Many soldiers could not eat the meals because they weren't kosher. A year ago, one could imagine such things. This would spark a major outcry in the Israeli media. There may be all kinds of claims of religious coercion and the mixing of religion and state or protests and, all this kind of stuff. But today it's totally different. What happened? When the brothers found out about this, they quickly contacted the Tel Aviv rabbinate. In a swift operation, the entire restaurant was koshered. Its menu altered, and that same week, the soldiers at the airbase enjoyed excellent meals from the restaurant of the Doctor brothers. All were glatt kosher. Perhaps most telling of all is the restaurant's name, Masad Ha'achim, the brothers' restaurant. So that's how we could possibly think of our Purim. There's gladness. But can we bring in simcha, as we're emphasizing, an openness of joy? So it's easy to give the answer, like I said, just right? We can feel maybe the gladness more than the joy. But the truth is, that's not enough. After all, the sentence in the Megillah, it says, La Yehuda Maisa Oira v'Simcha v'Sasin, both. Every year, it's said every year. We don't just say it when there's a cause for celebration. Every Saturday night, when we make Havdalah, we say this line. That means under every circumstances, the word Simcha applies. The Torah is eternal, and His lessons relevant in every time. Therefore, it is clear that even in a year like this, we must and find a way to experience not only the deeper gladness born of the certainty of our identity, but also the palpable joy that permeates from inside out, pushing us into the dance floor and vanquishing all of our senses and inhibitions. How is it described? That we're supposed to, on Purim, to get to a point where we don't know the difference between cursed be Haman and blessed be Mordechai. We can meet the challenge because we have been preparing for it all of our lives. Again and again, we have proclaimed our belief that God is the essence of goodness, and all of His ways are for good. Now comes the big test. Do we really believe it? More specifically, can we bring ourselves with this age-old faith to dance on credit, knowing that although we don't know yet how, the time will come when we will see that indeed there's a reason to celebrate? Perhaps the key lies in the phrase that on Purim we're supposed to reach a point, an liberation. We do not know the difference between Haman and Mordechai. How is such a delusion possible for a sane person? Why in the world would the sages demand such a reckless thing, to be unable to distinguish between the pinnacle of holiness and the deepest muck of the darkness of evil? What does it mean? Along comes Chassidus and offers an awesome approach. Do you know what it means? You know what the idea of reaching the point of not knowing is to be honest enough to say that on Purim we must bring ourselves to discard the very notion that we know everything or that we know anything. Purim reminds us we must disabuse ourselves of our easy, comfortable definitions of good and evil. Not because they are wrong, God forbid, but because they are limited. Purim reminds us of a broader picture, that we must believe with complete faith that our lens is too narrow. And in every single case, no matter how hard it is to see, God's ways are good and are designed to bring us towards the ultimate redemption. The Jewish perspective is to always keep marching forward, to know with certainty that every event, every occurrence, and every interaction we have brings us closer to that ultimate redemption. Sometimes it's a direct step forward from one stepping stone to the next, a clear expression of bringing heaven to earth and bringing earth closer to God. And sometimes it's one step backwards, but always to propel a subsequent giant leap forward. This is the exact story of Purim. The moment Haman's decree hit the press was definitely the most difficult moment in the entire history of the Jewish people. We're talking about a total darkness, a total despair, the likes of which we never have seen. Never before has there been such a decree against everybody at the same time, with nowhere to escape to. Yet no villain but Haman has brought about such an amazing outcome in the end. What was the Jewish response to the book as recorded in the book of Esther? Was total, comprehensive, and revolutionary, like there was never in our history. Facing such a crisis, you know what happened? Every Jew was moved closer to their Jewish identity. And ultimately, the Jews ended up in the position of power and prestige and spiritual engagement that they could scarcely ever imagine. What was Esther's words to Mordechai? Gather all the Jews in Shushan, All the Jews, men and women, young and old, religious, not religious, Ashkenazi, Sephardi, Hasidim, Litvaks, all the names we love to give ourselves. And what did they do? Why was Esther successful? Because they listened to what she had to say. And what did everybody do? There was a massive return, a massive teshuvah, a massive return that led to this redemption. As our sages tell us, that the event and Purim was like the second Mount Sinai experience, where we reaffirmed that which we already accepted. So think of Purim as an acceptance, a reaffirmation of who we are. Never in history was there such a spiritual awakening. In the Pesach story, Moses brought out just 20% of our people. Only 20% left Egypt. Hanukkah, there was a small group of people who answered the call. The vast majority, sadly, had fallen under the influence of Hellenism, and Matisyahu had to fight with a small amount. Paradoxically, for us it's not paradoxically, it was Haman's decree, the severest decree in our history, that brought about our greatest awakening in history. Why? Because that's how it is with us. The more they try to take from us, the stronger we hold on to who we are. The point of all this is, when we're having this in mind, Purim reminds us to reach a point where one does not know anything, to recognize that none of us can really know what is cursed and what is blessed. What seems to be the greatest challenge turns out to be the greatest catalyst for positive change. And the person who spends so many years avoiding his faith, or even trying to hamper others from keeping it, in the moment of truth, it all comes out to be a blessing to everybody around us. We cannot always see, let's be honest with ourselves, we don't see the bigger picture. Our human minds are limited. We don't see the bigger picture. Along comes this holiday of Purim and empowers us to know that we do not know, but to recognize that the train is steaming forward to redemption, and it's our merit and privilege to jump on board. My friends, there's so much I could talk about. All I can say is, coming Sunday, please, if you don't have Purim on your schedule, make every effort to go hear the Megillah, have the meal, exchange Shalach Manos, the special four mitzvahs of the holiday, and do it in tandem, do it in unity, recognize that we can make a difference. And with Hashem's help, very soon we will see the end of the wars, the return of all the hostages, and peace in this world with the coming of Mashiach. This is your host, Rabbi Perl, wishing you a wonderful, safe week. Please make all the preparations for Purim. You're welcome to join us at our synagogue. Wishing you the best. Sei gesund.